Hey everyone, welcome to the Stride to Freedom podcast. My name is Russell Benaroya, and I'm the co-founder of Stride Services, a virtual back-office bookkeeping and accounting firm serving hundreds of clients around the United States. This podcast is designed to help small business owners focus on growth and innovation. In other words, focus on those things that inspired you to start your business in the first place. We call it your genius zone. We do our job on this podcast when business owners feel like they have the trust and confidence to build the right team of partners around them that will help them grow. Thanks for joining. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast, where we help business leaders get and stay in their genius zone. My name is Russell Benaroya, and I am your host. Stride to Freedom is brought to you by Stride Services. We are an outsourced bookkeeping, accounting, and fractional CFO services firm, providing services to high-growth professional service companies like digital marketing and IT managed service providers. Stride's Genius Zone is helping its clients use data to make better business decisions. You can learn more about Stride at www.stride.services. But enough about that. Today, my friends, is a swanky day, because I have the pleasure of having my friend Jason Swenk on the episode. Jason, hey Jason, by the way.
Hello.
So good to see you. Jason
too.
is a bit iconic, blushing, in the world of digital marketing. Not only does Jason run an elite mastermind group with some of the most high-performing digital marketing companies around the United States, he's also a digital marketing entrepreneur, has built and exited multiple digital marketing businesses, and he has a passion for helping others achieve this. I was introduced to Jason through a mutual friend, to give credit where all credit is due, John Corcoran from Rise 25, and have had the pleasure of following Jason's machine of online outreach with a level of authenticity that I appreciate, Jason, and rarely experience. Today, we're going to talk about agency scaling, why it's hard, but why you can do it. You ready to jump in?
Awesome. Let's go for it.
Okay.
And I need you to introduce me to whenever I go anywhere. I'm just going to put you in the pocket.
I know I want you to feel so good because you're awesome. And I really appreciate you on the show. I remember when you and I met originally, and you shared with me that you lived in Durango, Colorado now. One of the things I appreciated, Jason, is you strike me as an individual who has a bit of a formula around life design. Like, you've created the life that you want, and then you have figured out how to architect the what you do around that. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's taken me a long time to figure that out, but yes.
And is that something when you work with your digital agency owners, do you talk about the broader picture of the totality of the life that they are trying to build, and the business is a part of it, an important part, but don't lose yourself in the business at the expense of all of these other things that are worthy in your life? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I started the first digital agency in 1999, and sorry, my voice is just hacked. I was yelling at the TV screen because Florida State lost. So
you're entitled.
My voice is not what it's usually. But no, when I started my first agency in 99, I was an accidental agency owner, accidental entrepreneur, right? Like, I knew how to do something cool. Someone offered me money, and then I was kind of on the way. But along the way, I remember a couple years down the road, got to a couple million in revenue, and I was completely miserable. And I didn't really know what was going on. The business was making more money. I was making less. I was working 1,000 more hours than I needed to be. And I remember my wife going, well, why don't you just shut it down and go get a job. And I seriously thought about it, which I probably a lot of people listening to the podcast have done, that were gone through it multiple times. And I remember interviewing with a small company called NASCAR, and they asked me two questions that really kind of changed everything for me. And then that's kind of where I really start when I work with people and go, well, we need to get some clarity of, where do you want to go? What don't you ever want to do again? What do you want to build, rather than what people think they want is to build a huge business and sell it off. But not necessarily is that the fact.
Yeah, yeah. So you had that interview with that small company. They asked you a couple of questions, and it dawned on you that you're not ready to
Yeah, well, I
throw
realized
the towel.
they asked me, they go, what do you love doing every day, and what don't you never want to do again?
Mm.
And so I literally went back, and one of the exercises, and everyone can do this now, or well, you can start it and then finish the exercise later, is take a sheet of paper out, 8.5 by 11, right? Put your fist on it, draw a circle around it. Everything on the outside of the circle, write down all the shit or crap you never want to do ever again, and take about an hour doing it. So it could be like mine was, I don't want to deal with clients. I don't want to hire people. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And then I started thinking, well, what are the things I really love doing? Well, I love the creative process. I
Yeah.
love building better leaders. I love, being the face of the organization, right? So from that, I understood what I could say no to, what I needed to hire, what I needed to delegate. And then I can actually start putting a plan together. And I realized, well, I have more control now than I would working for someone else.
Mm.
And when I did that, I had instant clarity of what my role needed to be. And then I shaped the business around that. And that's what I've
Mm-hmm.
been doing on this particular business, and just creating rules that most of the time I don't break. Today I'm actually breaking one, but
well, I wrote a book, as you probably know, called One Life to Lead: Business Success Through Better Life Design, and it has a lot of rules and guidelines in there as well. And I break them too. Like, just because you know them, knowledge is the most important thing, and awareness, because you're going to break them.
Mhm.
Know when you do, and course correct if you can.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate that intro. Super interesting. What are some of the big challenges that are facing digital marketing agency owners today?
Well, I don't think they have enough time, or they don't think they have enough time, right?
Mm,
They're what do they always usually say? I'm just too busy. I don't have time to update my website. I don't have time to update my own marketing that I can do really well for other people. And if that's you, which this probably is, then it's a telltale sign that you're not charging enough,
mm,
right? Because if you go back to the very beginning of when you started, yeah, you've probably raised prices over the time. But I remember I was chatting with my mastermind a couple of weeks ago. I said, "When's the last time you guys raised your prices?" Some people were like 5 years, 10 years. Some people were like last
yeah.
week. I'm like, okay, good, right? And so it's just so hard to think about, what are we worth? And I think a lot of agencies don't understand what they're worth, or they don't understand the value that they're delivering. And if they don't understand the value that they're delivering, well, the clients probably don't either. And that leads it up to like, well, you're probably a commodity to them in their eyes, right? Not necessarily. And we've all been there. We're going, why did we lose that client? We were doing an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you probably did, but you didn't communicate that, which is half the job.
You're so right. I like to say that heroes create victims and villains. So when you hero by not charging your worth because you want them to feel really good, you end up, despite your best efforts, despite your desire to want to be seen as somebody who is helping that client be successful and maybe save a little bit, you end up getting villainized.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to work for both parties, right?
Does.
Like, if you feel like you're undercharging and that client is taking advantage of you, well, you're probably not going to do the best job, which then the client's
Right.
going to be like, well, you're not doing the best job, and you're not giving me, you know, all the attention I need. And then it just doesn't work. But if you can figure out what you're worth and what you need to be charging, like literally think about you personally, or right? Why did you start the agency? Where do you
Mhm.
want the agency going? What do you want to be making from the agency, or what do you need to be making in order for you to feel whole? Because if you're not getting paid what you're worth, you're going to have resentment against the agency. And then you're going to come to me and going, Jason, will you buy my agency? And I'll be like, well, we would, but if you work a little bit harder, we'd probably give you 10 times more if you work on these little things. Because a lot of times people are inches off from really knocking it out of the park or getting that
Mm.
hole in one. What if you're a baseball or golf or whatever, or
Mhm.
touchdown or goal or whatever it is.
It sounds like your genius zone, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the advising and the guiding and the empathy and compassion you provide to other agency owners that are traversing their own experience and trying to figure out how to build whatever it is that they want to build. Tell me A, if that's right, and B, how you've architected that into the business that you run today.
Well, I kind of fell into this business as well, right? So after I sold my first agency, I thought, man, screw, I'll never get another agency again. I'm getting way out of it. I'm going to go develop an iPhone app. So I thought the grass was greener on the other side, but I realized the grass was greener on the side that you water. So
Yeah.
then what I realized was a lot of my competitors at the agency were reaching out and were like,
Mm.
how'd you sell? How'd you get these big clients? How were you profitable? How'd you go to the racetrack and race cars all the time and not work around the clock? And how'd you do all this? And so I started helping them out and I put it like a framework together. And so then I started thinking about, well, let's go back to the exercise that I originally did, that changed the agency. And I did the same thing with this. I said, these are the things I love doing. These are the things I never want to do. Right. And I thought about what's the why in order to get that clarity, in order to give myself direction as well as my team direction so they can call me out on my shit when I'm outside the direction. And I just said, well, I want to be a resource I wish I had when I was running my first agency. And I want to help people create the right systems. I want to help people be able to kind of get more freedom in their life. Not like, because I think there's a lot of people out there that they work around the clock, and that's not me. And I don't think that's a life. Like they try to work around the clock in order to sell and then they'll enjoy, which that may happen when they're 60, 70, 80. But then you can't really go do the fun stuff. Like every Friday I go, me and my one crazy ass friend, we call it Epic Fridays. And so we go do really cool stuff. If you guys want to see the stuff we do, go just follow me on Instagram. It's just Jay Swank. I don't really
Okay.
post any business stuff there. It's just all fun stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll go rock climbing, or we'll take the mountain bikes down a really steep mountain, or we'll go to Moa, or just do fun stuff like that most people don't do, just
Mm-hmm.
to really live. And I want people to be able to have that freedom to, they don't have to go do stupid stuff like we do, but have the freedom to go fishing or whatever it is, whatever makes their fancy.
What is going on in the head of the digital agency owner when they elect to work with you, when they come to you? What is the range of challenges that they're facing that trips them over into, yes, I'm ready to commit?
I mean, how long is this show?
Yeah, well,
Right.
probably not
Um,
as long as it needs to be for that
exactly.
question.
So
Yeah.
really the main ones, I already covered one of them, not
Yeah,
charging
time.
enough. The other
Yeah,
one is just
charging.
having the vision or the clarity in order to bring on the right people. So I look at, there's 6 stages of scaling an agency to the very top. I'm a mountain guy, obviously. So the first one is really staging. And I'll go through each of these really quick,
Sure.
and I'll tell you the biggest challenge. And if you have that biggest challenge, you're at that stage. And then I'll tell you what you need to do in order to get over it. So the first one is you're at the staging part of the mountain. So if you're climbing Everest, right, you're at the staging. Now, if you don't really have a clarity around your vision, your offering, or your niche, you're probably at staging. And that's perfectly fine. You could be a multi-million-dollar business and still be at staging. What you need to do is obviously get some clarity, have the vision, define the niche, define the offering. The next one up, I'll go through these really quick. Next one up is base camp. If you're there, your biggest challenge is a lack of leads. Okay. And in order to graduate, you need to build a lead generation system. But you can kind of see how these are going in order. You can't really build a lead generation system unless you know who you're going after, you're offering, right? So then the next level up is what I call the climb, right? We're starting to climb, we're getting a little higher, but you're not closing the right accounts. And it's because you don't really have a sales system, right? The owner is doing all the sales. And the only way to graduate this, to get to the crux, is the owner hands off the sales process. You still can do adding color, right? And being in some of the meetings, but you're not following up, you're not hunting down, all that kind of stuff. Next one up is called the crux. And your team is not delivering consistently. Like there's a lot of issues going on. And it's because you're probably too in the weeds, right? And what you need to do is you need to build the right team so the owner can get out of the day-to-day operations. Okay. And then the next level up is called the crest. Great view from here. A lot of people stay here, and that's perfectly fine. You don't want to make the summit, that's perfectly fine. But the next one up there is really scaling and finding the right talent and bringing in the right people and making them become the best leaders. And you'll graduate to making it to the summit when you can actually kind of get 5 roles as a CEO. So you're transforming yourself from an owner to a CEO, where you're coaching and mentoring your team. You're setting the vision of the agency and communicating it to them. You understand the financials, and you work with people like you to help them do that, right? And then you make the decisions. You're assisting sales or building the key relationships, and you're the main personality for the agency.
Love it. Love the metaphors. There's a great book, by the way, called The Crux by a business school professor named Richard Rummelt. He published it recently, and he talks about the crux being in strategy, being what is the problem before you that you need to solve in order to continue the climb. He's an avid climber too. Love the metaphors. And do you find that most people come to you at the staging and base camp level, or it just depends?
Most are coming to me where they're at the climb and higher.
At the climb. Okay.
Yeah. But we have resources for, the people at the staging or at base camp, which, is the agency playbook, and it's an online framework that they can follow and really kind of build on from there. But almost all the people in the mastermind are all from climb, crux, even to the summit.
So let's talk about the mastermind, how that's organized, what people are committing to, the community that you've built, and the expectations that you have of those who participate, and vice versa.
Yeah, I wanted to put a group together that I wanted and I needed, and that I also enjoyed too, right? Like, I wanted people that were at a certain level, that knew that they needed help, that they could come in and be transparent. They could be humble. There's no douchebags allowed. We only allow about 50% of the people in that actually that we chat with. So we're really picky, and that's not bullshit like most people say, all right, that just let anybody with a paycheck in. And I always tell, which you've talked to Darby, when he's evaluating people and then we're comparing them, saying, if you let someone in that doesn't meet these criteria, you're the one that's going to be hanging out with them at our digital agency experience. You're going to be babysitting this person, not me. So we're really picky at who we get in, but we want to highlight the members. So what I really wanted is, I didn't want just one person's perspective. I wanted to be a fly on the wall of what the best agencies in the world were doing. And I wanted them to be able to see the things I might not be able to see, because they're higher than me, or they've been there before, and they can go, oh, you're about to step on a glacier and you're about to go down. Or what is it called? A crevasse?
Crevasse?
Crevasse.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of ice climbing. That scares me to death. But maybe that changes next year. I don't know. Maybe I need to do more of that, I guess.
Yeah, could be an epic Friday.
Yeah. Um, but I wanted people to come in where they can get together on an ongoing basis. And then also a couple of times throughout the year, we do what we call the Digital Agency Experience. At the past, it's been at my house on the mountain where we'll hike the mountain. We'll take the ATVs out to like 13,000 feet, go see amazing things, but we'll also work on your mountain. This year, we actually rented out a 100,000 acre ranch with over 4,000 bison
Oh my gosh.
on it, which we get to play cowboy and work on the business and do all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
Amazing. And so, what are participants committing to? Do you meet? How often do you meet? What are the vehicles of communication?
Yeah. So we meet virtually twice a month,
Okay.
which is all over Zoom. They're committing to checking Slack on a regular basis for the community. They're also committing to being transparent, showing up, being helpful. We always hate those people that come in and just take. So we're always making sure what are the things that they can actually add to the group. Like every month we always do a what's working now strategy from a member. And so we always ask them, what's working now for you? What's working really well that you could teach the other mastermind members, which everybody always loves. And because everyone rather learn from them rather than me, which is always a lot better.
What are you hearing from agency owners as we look into the proverbial crystal ball of a bit of an uncertain economic environment? What are you hearing in terms of preparing for that? Because when the sun is shining, we can all make hay, but when it's not, it's challenging.
Well, then you get a greenhouse.
Then you get a greenhouse. Yes.
That's what I tell people, because look, when the pandemic happened, no one's ever been through this,
Right.
or remember anything like this. And so everything shut down, businesses were not doing anything. And I was just like, wow, I'm kind of glad I'm at a point where I've saved a lot of money. I'm good. But I was worrying about everybody else. And so we did a lot of free workshops and all this just to help them out. But what we realized was the agency market in a bad time actually grows, because everyone is looking to other ways in order to, it's on the digital side, right? They're looking for ways to reach more customers or more clients or be more efficient. And that's really where agencies have that opportunity. So I always tell people, when things are getting worse, that's your opportunity, because a lot of the traditional people will start pulling out. But the ones that are smart, that the ones that are going to invest and that you could ride that ship. I mean, I look back at, I started the first agency in 99. So we went through the dot bomb era. We went through 9/11. We went through 08, right? So that was 3 bad places that my agency always grew. And then when the pandemic happened, this business took off. So did all the other agencies. And so even if we go into a recession, like, hope it comes, because you're going to benefit. You just can't freak out. And here's the life hack. Don't watch the news. Don't read the news. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Someone was like, we're at war with someone. I'm like, what? I don't, okay.
That is good advice, because there's nothing you can do about it.
That's right.
Nothing you can do about it. You introduced me to Todd Taskey several weeks ago from Potomac Business Capital, and he was on the podcast last week, which was cool. Talking about exiting your agency. I'm curious how you guide and have conversations with your mastermind participants around exiting, valuations, expectations, anything in that arena.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is so I also have another agency called Republics with a number of different really smart people.
Okay.
And so we started this about 2.5 years ago, and we've been growing through acquisition. So we buy agency. We bought 11 agencies in the past 2.5 years.
Wow.
And we're a little over 8 figures in EBITDA, just to give you some perspective of how big it is. Like, who cares about the top line revenue, right? Like, I always laugh when people say that. I'm like, it's about profit. And so I have a lot of perspective on this. So when I sold my first agency, there was a number of different factors that went in. And I tell people, you should only sell if you meet these things. One is you just don't like it anymore. You should get out. And that's really why I got out on that one. I just didn't like it anymore. I wanted something new. The other one is maybe that you could build something bigger with the other agency and they kind of take all those headaches away from you. That was kind of there, but I was more leaning to the first one. And then the third, which thankfully I didn't have to, like, I didn't need the money, like for medical or something, like something bad happened. Right. And so a lot of times when I chat with owners and they come to me wanting to sell, I actually talk them out of it. I'm like, well, the grass is not greener on this other side based on what you told me. And if you work a little bit harder and work on this system, you can get to a point where you can get rid of the stuff you don't want to do anymore. And you can kind of sit back. I worked with Zach's been a client of mine for so many years. And he got to a point where he was thinking about selling a long time ago, and I talked him out of it. And I'm glad he's very glad I did now. He makes millions now by just being the chairman of his agency, and he has no responsibilities whatsoever. But he just put the right people and the right team in place. And then you asked me about valuations. So I can tell you how I've seen the valuations, and then also how we've done them at Republics. What we'll do is if you're under $1 million in EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, and amortization, is that right?
Depreciation and amortization.
Depreciation. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're under $1 million, usually we'll do a valuation of 1 to 2x, which when I tell people that, they're like, damn, that sucks. Because there's a lot of agencies around 200,000 in EBITDA a year. And that's even after recasting, right? Taking away a lot of the BS expenses that we put in there, right?
1 to 2x EBITDA. Okay.
Yeah. And so we're like, wow, you're only worth 400. Now, that's not the cash offer that we would do. We'd do half cash. And this is what a lot of people do, half cash and then half in an earn out or half later on at a certain time. So usually under $1 million, it doesn't make sense. But if you can get over the $1 million, then you start getting the multiples that everyone hears, right? You can get the 4 to 6x. I've even got some of our mastermind members and clients to 8x. And I always recommend using Todd. So you guys go check out Todd. He's the one I always recommend. So if you get to $1 million, wow, man, you might be able to get 8 million out of it over a certain time frame. But then if you can get over the 3 million, it increases even more. And then if you can get over, and then it just starts going up substantially after, around the 8 million or 9 million or 10 million in EBITDA. But I tell people, if you're making this much money and you're doing all the stuff you love and you got rid of all the stuff you hate, why the hell do you want to sell? Like, you're getting millions. You have an amazing team. You can actually create an incubator agency where you can build other stuff through the team and all the stuff that you know. So why would you sell? And so a lot of my partners sometimes at Republics gets mad at me because I'll talk them out of it. But I always told them, I said, look, I'm always going to, no matter if it's going to benefit me or not, I'm always going to tell people what they need rather than what I want for them or for myself. So.
It's great advice, Jason. A couple of last questions, and I know we're almost at time. You are also building this mastermind business. It's a business. It's a machine. You've got people. You've got an apparatus. I'm curious if you could share a little bit about the business of running a mastermind empire.
Well, I don't know if it's an empire. It's just I think the secret of the sauce is really creating something that you know and you love and you enjoy, and then putting and really kind of defining where you're going, defining my core values, right? Which would tell me if my team members will share those similar values as I would, right? Rather than I could hire a really good salesperson that's like, sell anything, but they don't believe in what I believe in.
Right.
And then being very selective at who you put in that circle. We've kicked out a lot of people over the years that they tricked us in the very beginning, or it took us a while to figure out. It's kind of like a Vegas buffet. You got to try out everything. And I
So
like
true.
that. I don't like that. And then it's about creating rules around your lifestyle, right? So I only do meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm breaking this one on Monday, which I hardly ever do. And then I have certain time frames. So then I can go live my life. And then when I'm actually working and doing, and when I say working, my mind's always working. I'm talking about more meetings. So when I
Yeah.
actually have my meetings, so I only do 10 hours of meetings every week. So when I have my meetings, I am so focused, I'm so on point that I'm not burned out, because I don't ever want to burn out on this. If I ever burn out on this, you'll know it. You won't ever hear from me again.
What is something people don't usually ask you that you like to share, would be interested to share in giving listeners more insight into who you are?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, honestly. And I always ask kind of at the end of my show, I'm like, what's the question I didn't ask you? And then I'll go into one. So I don't know what, and I always laugh at people when they do that. I don't know, honestly. I'm a kind of an open book. Um, and I always, yeah, I don't know.
If people wanted to plug in to the mastermind, how do they find out about you, about it, and explore the opportunity?
Sure. Yeah, two places you can go. You can go to digitalagencyelite.com. That's the link to the mastermind. But what I would tell all of you is I would encourage you to go to the website and listen to our podcast called the Smart Agency Masterclass, or watch any of the thousands of videos that we've done first before you do the mastermind, to be like, hey, I kind of like this guy, or I understand his approach, and really kind of dive into that. Most people, which I love, is they've digested our content for 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they ever even thought about the mastermind. And I've always loved that. So if you go to jasonswenk.com, and Swenk is spelled SWENK, or you can go to Swankit, swank.it. I actually
You're
own
there.
that
You're
one.
there too.
You
That's
could,
cool.
it takes you to the regular website, and you can check out all the free stuff, and make sure it's, not, I'm not a hacker, or you decide if I'm a hacker or whatever.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. I just really appreciate having you on. I really see you as a voice for the industry. You're a great guide. You're a great convener. You're authentic in intent and purpose. You're very creative. You've done a lot for the industry. So for me to have the opportunity to share that with our listeners and our clients in the community is a total gift. Thank you for walking
Well,
us up the 6 stages. And I want to have you on again. We'll figure it
perfect.
out.
Well,
Have a
thanks
great
so much
day.
for having me on.
Thanks, Jason. Have a great day, everybody. We will see you on the next episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast. Thanks. Bye.